Milinji, you can start.
Okay. All right. Well, namaste to everyone from Australia. My name is Milind Sathe. I am professor in a university here in Australia. The topic of my presentation is foreign media and disinformation campaign. Now, disinformation campaign is commonly known as propaganda or false propaganda. I am going to talk on four key points. Number one, the history of propaganda warfare against India. Number two, a framework that we can use to analyze and understand the problem of false propaganda. Number three, how the false propaganda is used against India. And number four, what can we do about it and what we have done in Australia about it. So, the history of propaganda warfare goes back to the days of the British Raj. The British supported the theory, actually formulated and supported the theory of Aryan invasion. And the Varna and the Jati system was labeled as caste. Now, this kind of a false propaganda was taking place subtly. For example, calling Hinduism a religion or calling Dharma a religion is itself a propaganda. And Sanskrit Non-Translatables is a book recently written by Dr. Rajiv Malhotra, which is an eye-opener in this case. Similar things you will find in the book Breaking India by Rajiv Malhotra and The Ruler's Gaze by Professor Arvind Sharma. And these authors detail how the false propaganda has been going on for years. There was a thesis by a Marxist by name Gangadhar Adhikari. And this 1942 thesis advocated that India should be divided into 17 small states. Obviously, the strategy is obvious that when there are smaller states, then you can subjugate them easily. The communists in India, they have not abandoned yet the Adhikari thesis. Similarly, the Joshua project of the missionaries in Nagaland and other states. In Nagaland, the Christian population was about 13%, 13% in 1931. Today, it stands close to 90%, 90%. So that means almost the whole of Nagaland is now Christian. Similar is the design of the Ghazwa-e-Hind, which Shoaib Akhtar, the cricketer, recently was talking about. Propaganda intensified after Modi became the Prime Minister in 2014. The London Guardian wrote a special editorial on 19th of May 2014, which noted that we, the British, in short, ruled India by proxy. And who was the proxy? Of course, the Congress party. But now, 2014, for the first time, a Indian government, a real Indian government, a real Hindu government, they call it Hindu fundamentalist government, has come up, and they are no longer our proxy. Consequently, the propaganda intensified. Now, if we have to understand the problem of false propaganda, we need a framework. The RAND Corporation in the United States, they developed a framework to analyze Russian propaganda against USA. That framework has got 4 elements. The first is leadership. The second is the proxies. The third is the loudspeakers or the amplifiers. And the fourth is the consumers, that is to whom the propaganda is directed for consumption. Similar propaganda tactics have been used by Iran, ISIS, ISIL, and they use political, cultural, and religious levers in order to push false propaganda. Now, if we apply the RAND framework to India, then we find that there is not just one leadership. There are 3 leaderships. One is the adversarial countries, like Pakistan, China, we know who the adversarial countries are. They are pushing false propaganda to demean India internationally for their interest. Number 2, there are adversarial political parties. The Communist Party, the UPA, the Congress, etc. Their objective is to pull down Modi. The third is the religious leadership, the missionaries, and of course the Islamists, who are interested in converting Hindus into Christianity or Islam, and the Marxists as well, who want to convert them to Marxism. The reason is, once they get converted, they become vote banks for the opposition political parties in India. And that's the reason why these parties, when they were in power, neglected the activities of these missionaries and others. The proxies are the domestic media. The amplifiers are social media, foreign media, and the consumers are Indian voters, foreign voters, and foreign policymakers, so that they can bring a change in the foreign country against India. They will put a government in place in a foreign country that is inimical to the interest of India. That is why the propaganda is made through the foreign media. There are NGOs like the EU Disinformation Lab, European Union Disinformation Lab. This is an NGO. And they did a research study. And they did a research study on India, showing that India is involved in false propaganda against China and Pakistan. Now, if you are a research institute and if you are a NGO, then you should have also done simultaneously a study of the Chinese and Pakistani propaganda against India. But they have not done it. They have not done it for any other country. Only India's propaganda against China and Pakistan is what they are. They call it their research. Obviously, this is all funded. Recent examples of the farmers' protest, CAA, Kathua rape, are intended to destabilize India, demean India, defame Hindus, and this has been going on for some years. If India is really that bad, or Hindus are that bad, why is that the Rohingya Muslims are not going or not seeking asylum in China or in some 50 odd Islamic countries, but they choose to come and stay in India? It serves two purposes. One, they are safe here in India, which is a Hindu majority country. And number two, of course, is the demographic changes that can eventually harm India. An antidote against this is a united Hindu or a united Hindutva. However, united Hindutva is a threat to the regimented, dictatorial, and exclusivist worldview of the proselytizing religions as well as the Marxist ideologies. Their worldview is to create a world that is pan-Islamic, pan-Christian, pan-Marxist. And when that happens, harmony is not going to be there because they are going to fight against each other for dominance. The weaknesses of the Hindus have been very well identified by French governor of India, Dupleix. You may have heard his name in the history books. Now, Dupleix said that Hindus are not united. This is their first problem. Because they are not united, in order to settle their internal dispute or internal feud, they are willing to take or willing to invite foreign invaders. Number two, their army is not well trained. They are not disciplined. They lack technology. Of course, this was the time when the French and the British were having a tussle between themselves. And number three, they can be easily bribed. These lessons from Dupleix, these insights from Dupleix, were taken over by the British and used successfully against India, and their divide and rule game continued. How do we address this propaganda? That is the question. One is, we need to have counter strategies and strategies that will mirror the strategies which they are using, the enemy is using. We need to have, now there are some strategies that are in the hands of the government. Well, the government is doing whatever they can do within their jurisdiction. But people like us who are in the non-government, what can we do? What is in our control? One is, we need to develop our own think tanks who will do research on these adversarial groups, write papers, circulate these papers. The Marxists, as you will know, have an excellent network. They have academic journals that are exclusively Marxist journals, and they publish in those journals and then cite each other in a club and then come and tell us that, look, my articles are published in a refereed journal. If you send an article countering a Marxist article published in a Marxist journal, obviously it will be rejected. Similar is the case with Christians as well. It is important that we need to have NGOs, our Hindu peats, our Hindu temples need to be freed, their wealth needs to be freed and made available to support Hindu cause. That is an essential requirement at this stage. We need to be aware that whatever the foreign media does it for money. China paid $700,000 to the Time magazine. This is as reported in the media. It funded $371,000 to Financial Times. Now, through Financial Times, they will implant news how Indian economy is failing, for example, or take the case of COVID management. They said India is the worst country in management of COVID. But over the years, over 1 year period, when it was found that India is doing the best in the world in COVID management, they all became silent. They were not publishing that news at all. It is important that foreign funding of the NGOs within India for the media in India needs to be put under a scanner. And when it was found that several Indian media have been funded by the Chinese. For example, the News Click has been funded by the Chinese. And it is easy for you to see which media is aligned where. We need to have counter strategy, and for that we need to have academics, journalists, rebuttals publishing in alternate media. I'll just quickly tell what we did in Australia. In Australia, I rebutted an article written by Pratap Bhanu Mehta, a Harvard professor in Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and I countered that article. After my article was published in ABC, I sent it to him and told him, Professor, this is a rebuttal. If you want to rebut me, please come out in the public domain. He ran away. In the last 2 years, he has not published anything in Australia. I did similar thing to Wendy Doniger, to Martha Nussbaum, to Joseph Alter, and the articles that I have written on this are available online. I did rebuttal of a journalist, Brian Tuhe, in the Sydney Morning Herald, and we also complained to the Press Council of Australia. Recently, when the Victorian government in Australia tried to ban the swastika sign, I prepared a research paper that swastika is not a Nazi symbol. The Nazi symbol is Hakenkreuz, and swastika is different. And this has been accepted by the Victorian government now, and Hakenkreuz is now at the website of the Victorian government and not swastika. So what are the lessons we get from this Australian study? Number one, do not ignore them, expose them, form a counter strategy. And thirdly, we need to train people. I am doing it in my limited way by training a group of academics in Australia as well as in New Zealand. So my time is up. Thank you very much. And it was nice to be here. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, friends, and people watching from all over the world. I just traveled to India. I'm in Puri, very famous place. So from Puri, from Jagannathji's home, namaskar to everyone today. My topic is very clear, and I've been hearing a lot of yesterday's session, today's session. So I must congratulate Satparasharji for taking the initiative and organizing this conference, Hindus for Global Good. And this is the perfect name to be given, because I have written 8 books. In my last book, which came out, was Gold, Glory, and God. If you look at the history of the world, then we find out that the entire world from 6th century onwards was put upside down. 6th century started the beginning of colonial era with a papal bull. Papal bull, some of you may not know, you can read in detail in my books, but you can also search on Wikipedia. It was a call by the Roman Catholic Church to control or take the land from the natives in South America while they were searching for India, because the spices were known to remove diseases in Europe. The 13th century Europe was a very poor, diseased continent. And because of crusades, we all know how the natives of Europe went through crusades. And believe me when I say the natives, we know they were all Hindus. Because the ancient Greek culture was directly derived from Sanskrit. And Vedic culture, including Sarai Kali, there's a deity in South France, which was known to be which is known by the European historians to be connected to Durga in India. So native Greeks were connected to Hindus in a very strong way. And the point which I'm trying to say is that the native cultures of the world, whether it's Africa, Europe, Asia, South America, we all know that the first migrations to the United States happened through the Bering Strait, wherein the Hindus who were running from Parshuram, where they crossed over into Bering Strait. And that's how the population of North America came out. Otherwise, why would North Americans, the natives of North America and South America, they all came from up Alaska down to Chile? If you see the map there. In my books, I have described it very clearly about Parshuram's study, and also Krishna confirms in Mahabharata that how that due to Parshuram, some Kshatriyas went towards the east, which they obviously have ran towards, and the data suggests that the Bering Strait was a common connected land just few thousand years back. It was 1,000 kilometers wide, and it was so Alaska and Russia were connected continents. That is, a history shows. So we all know how the Native Americans have come about, and South Americans also. All this breed, and there is a DNA study also, and the DNA study says that the Indian genes is found prominent in many natives of North America and South America. In Europe, we all know it was a continentally connected thing. So we do not know that we know very accurately, and with research we can say that before the Christian era and the Islamic era, that is before the 6th century and the 1st century, believe me, the Bible was written in 525 Common Era, not before that. And Quran was completed in 9th century, 800 during that time. Now, before that, all the culture in the world was a Hindu culture. And people had peace, people had tranquility, people were connected with nature. The animal rights abuses were very less, and human rights abuses were also very less. But the fights were always on. See, it's the nature of a human being. There are some there are fights happening between nations, small states with another state. It is the law of the nature. It will happen. It did happen. But not mass scale religious persecution of people. That did not happen. And that is what Hindutva or Hinduness stands for. And the beauty of our culture is that it not only teaches us how to live harmoniously with another human being, it also teaches us to live harmoniously with nature, with animals, and also people belonging to multiple faiths. There is a very famous saying of Sikwan king that we were very kind to all these invaders despite them being looting our lands and making us a foreign citizen within our own land. This happened near Boston and northeast of America. So we as a Hindu community, and I must say before me the speaker was from Australia, Aborigines of Australia. Aborigines of Australia, it is very well known the entire Australian continent was fully occupied by Aborigines of Australia. And that means that every single part of that was inhabited. just a few thousand years, few hundred years back. What has happened to Australia? What has happened to the Maori community in New Zealand? What has happened to the Kazakh community in China? They are all connected to us. And the most important is what has happened to Romani people of Europe. So we have to, as a Hindu community, we must become the leaders of human rights in the entire world. We must question wherever in my last book, Gold, Glory and God, these were the three main reasons of colonial conquest and destruction of native cultures of the world. Hindus are the only remaining Native Americans in the world today. And the reason is that we have a culture which was original, thousands of years old, and also millions of practitioners are still remaining. The whole world looks up to Hindus to protect their rights. And I must, some of us have different opinions about Mahatma Gandhi, but one area I will congratulate him, and today is Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti also, that he fought for the rights of native South Africans. Because of his inspiration, Malcolm Marshall and other leaders of the black community, African American community, got inspired to raise their voices. And also in the apartheid, he has a major contribution in ending the apartheid in South Africa. Now, we may disagree with him on many points, but this one point we must take lessons from, that we have to stand together to protect the rights of all natives. And all of us are, some of us are divided on the American theory of critical race theory. Now, critical race theory is a European construct and in opposition to European construct. But what is the reason behind critical race theory? The reason behind critical race theory is critical faith theory, that Abrahamic faiths have a dominion over other people. That is the main reason. So where the Christians are in majority, they are humans, rest of them are pagans or heathens or infidels. Where Muslims are in majority, rest of the people are kafirs and they can be killed or they need to be taxed higher until they submit. So our Bhagavad Gita teaches us that we need to stand for our rights. Yudhyasva vigajjara. Without lethargy, fight. Bhagavan Krishna says, Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya dhatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigajjara. We don't read our scriptures. Our scriptures tell us that wherever you see, I've written 8 books, 3 on Mahabharata, 1 on Ramayana, and 2 books on a common commentary, Dharma commentary on current native affairs. Now, we have to learn our scriptures and build strength on it. Krishna says, Yuddhecha palayanam, means we should never come back from the fight. Somehow, we have been told to keep Mahabharata out of the house, it creates clash. Do not keep, and so we have kept all the important scriptures outside the house. And we are here fighting for survival. Believe me, the critical faith theory which I have proposed, that means that the faith which supports the maximum group of people, it becomes a critical faith. So Hindutva or Sanatana Dharma is that faith which connects the maximum group of people. Vadanti tattva tattva vidas tattvam vidjnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwan iti shabdati. It includes anyone. And so, but the problem is the world knows strength. The entire, if you see the colonial history, was a military conquest. And I must tell you that we must feel proud on 2nd October. The first king who defeated a colonial power was the Dutch. The Dutch were defeated in a straight naval military fight with Sri Martanda Varma from Kerala. And I'll be visiting Kerala very shortly. See, the point which I'm trying to say is that we have to build strength and we have to build our identity. And our identity is going to be built on our scriptures. And we have been made to forget it. We have been so many wrong translations of Gita has been written. We have been told Gita is a very old book, ancient book, it's a mythology. Mythology word was invented. If you watch Satology channel, YouTube channel, you'll see, was invented to prove us that our ancient history was false, and which is a very wrong notion. Therefore, I invented the term Satology. We should never, Sat means truth, and myth means a fake lie or imagination. It's a Sanskrit dhatu. So Satology means a science of truth, the study of truth. Satya mev jayate. We have to speak the truth and we have to speak it fearlessly. So if you see in aborigines, rights getting destroyed, we have to say it. Understand one thing, there is an Native American saying, the duck which quacks the loudest gets the cracker. The Western world, that means the Christian world. We have to completely understand The Western world is the Christian world. It's nothing to do with anything else. It's not to do with West. They're very clever. They are trying to fool us. So critical race theory is a European construct to hide the critical faith theory. You have to understand the reasons behind it. So we have to speak for all the natives of the world, because all the natives of the world were Hindu and will be Hindu. And this conference is very aptly named Hindus for Global Good. We have to become the human rights champion. We have to become the voice of the people who do not have the voice. Unless we do that, we will not be able to change the destiny of the entire world. Mahatma Gandhi, today is a very auspicious day also, in a way that he shows us this aspect of the leadership. I also don't agree with him on all different aspects. I firmly believe Subhash Chandra Bose was a reason, and that is proved by Mountbatten also. He said Subhash Chandra Bose is responsible. But there are some good things we should take from everywhere. Whatever being, he had faith in Bhagavad Gita. So the Quran, Muslims have Quran, Christians have Bible, Jews have Torah. What do Hindus have? The Bhagavad Gita. We have to speak and learn our own scriptures. We cannot derive mental strength from other scriptures. As I'm traveling India nowadays, in last 3-4 days I've been traveling India, everywhere European names, Marco Polo buses, Martinelli. I'm saying, what has happened to Bharatiya? This is the colonial mindset. Everything in the Christian world is better than everything in the Hindu world. That's what is going on. So we have to reverse the trend. In America, we must demand that the Hinduism, Hindutva must be taught only by Hindu people in tradition. This we must tell. And we must also say in all other parts of the world that Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma must be taught by only those people belonging to a tradition or who are practicing it. So this is the time Hindus must save the humanity. If we do not speak up, then understand we are part of Vikarma. We are not doing our job. We are part of Adharma. If we do not speak up for the rights of others, whatever he may be or she may be, it doesn't matter. We are the only voice of reason, but somehow we are not speaking enough. And thanks to all these wonderful speakers, you all have shown that how much data we have, how much information we have. And it's time to move forward and claim our heritage. Our heritage is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam on the principles of Sanatana Dharma. We are large-hearted on the principles of Sanatana Dharma. They are small-hearted, Lagutatmata. You should read the whole entire shloka. They are small-minded because they are speaking only for their religion, their goal, and their culture. What happened to South Americans? What happened to Indians? What happened to Asians? Philippines was a Hindu country before Christian Spaniards came there. And today it is speaking Spanish, and they have forgotten their language, Tagalog. And that is wherever the Abrahamic faiths have gone, they have created poverty everywhere. America is rich because the church is kept outside the power. England was rich because church is kept outside the power. French were rich because church was kept outside the power. Secularism was used by them, and they advised to keep the church. But Sanatana Dharma is not secularism. Sanatana Dharma includes everything. Hindutva is naturally neutral to all faiths. And therefore, Hindutva must be in governance. I want Americans, if they are listening, we have to adopt Hindutva as a principle of American governance. And everywhere Native American cultures need to be protected. If Australia is a stolen land, according to me, it is stolen from Aborigines. And New Zealand is also stolen land. So we have to speak out, speak up, and make ourselves heard and felt. So I'll stop here. And I'm very grateful to all the organizers and wonderful speakers who have come before on the show. I watched yesterday's recording, and I'm going to watch today's recording also. Namaste.
Anand, should I start? नमस्ते प्रिय भगिनी बंधुवर, मैं सबसे पहले इस वैश्विक आयोजन के सूत्रधार सभी मित्रों को धन्यवाद करते हुए आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। आप सब ने मुझे इस कॉन्फ्रेंस में बोलने का अवसर दिया, इसके लिए आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। संस्कृत के उदय से दुनिया को राह दिखाने वाली भारत की धरती से विश्व के कोने कोने से इस कॉन्फ्रेंस को सुनने वाले सभी महानुभावों को मैं प्रणाम करते हुए हिंदुत्व और उसके नीति शास्त्र, उसकी वर्तमान आधुनिक युग में सार्थकता के विषय में आपके समक्ष मैं अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करता हूं। हिंदुत्व बेसिकली है क्या? हिंदुत्व जीवन जीने की एक पद्धति है, एक सर्वोत्तम जीवन जीने का तरीका। वो जीवन जो सब में उत्तम हो, ऐसे जीवन तक जीने का तरीका हिंदुत्व है। हिंदुत्व कैसे आया, अगर इस विषय में जाते हैं तो मैं थोड़ा सा चर्चा करना चाहता हूं। जैसे न्यूटन ने लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन दिया हमको, सारी दुनिया मानती, सारा ब्रह्मांड ये बात मानता, सारा विश्व ये बात मानता है कि न्यूटन ने लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन दिया। लेकिन क्या उस सेब के गिरने के ऑब्जर्वेशन से पहले ग्रेविटेशन था ही नहीं? ब्रह्मांड की एक छोटी सी घटना को ऑब्जर्व करके न्यूटन ने लॉ ऑफ ग्रेविटेशन दिया। उसी प्रकार हमारे हिंदू ऋषियों ने वर्षों से इस ब्रह्मांड में होने वाली हर एक छोटी बड़ी घटना को ऑब्जर्व किया, चाहे वो मनुष्यों के प्रति हो, चाहे वो सृष्टि के प्रति हो, चाहे वो इस ब्रह्मांड में खगोलीय घटनाओं के बारे में हो। उन सबका ऑब्जर्वेशन करने के बाद दो पक्ष दिए, एक सनातन पक्ष है, एक परिवर्तनशील पक्ष है। ऋषियों ने पूरी गहराई के साथ इस ब्रह्मांड का अध्ययन किया तो ये पाया, हम जीव एक दूसरे से अलग नहीं है। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिना, सबको सुख मिलना चाहिए, इस भावना के साथ ये हिंदुत्व आगे बढ़ता है। हमारे ऋषियों ने कहा कि हमारा जेनेटिक, हमारा मूल एक है। हमारा जेनेटिक एक है, मतलब हम परस्पर एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं। जब हम परस्पर एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं तो एक व्यक्ति सप्लीमेंट करता है वनस्पति को भी, एक व्यक्ति सप्लीमेंट करता है जलवायु को भी, एक व्यक्ति सप्लीमेंट करता है पशु पक्षियों को भी, क्योंकि बेसिक चीज एक है। जरा मन में सोच के देखिए, हम कहीं यात्रा कर रहे होते हैं, यातायात के किसी साधन पे बैठे होते हैं और कोई अचानक से घटना होती है, कोई दुर्घटना होती है, तो बड़े सहज रूप से हमारे मन से आह निकलती है। तो इसका मतलब क्या है कि हम सब प्राणी एक दूसरे से आपस में जुड़े हुए हैं। हमारा मूल एक है, ये बात हमारे ऋषियों ने कही, और हम आपस में जुड़े हुए हैं। और इस कैसे इसको नीति के साथ, नीति शास्त्र के साथ, कैसे इसको एथिक्स के साथ जोड़ा जाएगा। जब हम अपने एथिक्स के बारे में सोचने बैठते हैं तो हम ये पाते हैं कि जब किसी एक सनातनी का जीवन, किसी एक सनातन धर्म के जीवन जीने वाले व्यक्ति को, जिसको हम कहते हैं हमारे ऋषि थे, ऋषि मुनि थे, उन ऋषियों का किसी के जीवन को उठा लिया जाए तो शायद एथिक्स को डिफाइन किया जा सकता है उनके जीवन से। हमारा ऋषि कहते हैं कि हमारा जीवन, हमें अपना जीवन संयम से बिताना चाहिए। संयम क्या है? सृष्टि में पूरकता तभी आएगी कि हम अपना जीवन संयम से जीवन को यापित करें। उपनिषद कहते हैं तेन त्यक्तेन भुजिता, कैसे रहना है? त्याग पूर्वक इस संसार का उपभोग करना है। मतलब ऐसा नहीं करना है कि सब कुछ त्याग करके इस जीवन को जीना है। दूसरों की आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति होती हो और हमारी आवश्यकताएं हो चुकी हो तो हमें सब कुछ ओढ़ के नहीं ले जाना है। इस तरह के जीवन को त्याग पूर्वक जीना है, और इसका हमको नित्य दिन हमारे ऋषि मुनि अभ्यास करते हैं। आप कहीं किसी ऋषि के आश्रम में जाइए तो ऐसा लगता है जो उनके पास उनके सामान्य जीवन को, उनकी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति से अधिक होता है, वो सदैव दूसरे को दान करते रहते हैं। हिंदुत्व के कुछ प्रधान पक्ष हैं। 10-12 चीजों की मैं चर्चा करूंगा आपके साथ और उनको जोड़ने का प्रयास करूंगा। हालांकि अगर आप किसी भी एक चीज में जाएंगे, आप किसी भी एक चीज को समझने का कोशिश करेंगे, तो हमारा नीति शास्त्र पूरी तरह से, हमारे एथिक्स, हमारी वैल्यूज पूरी तरह से अगर विश्व आज अडॉप्ट करता है, तो निश्चित तौर पे ये मानिए जो सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिना की कल्पना है इस हिंदू धर्म की, वो पूरा ब्रह्मांड सुखी हो जाएगा। तो एक एक करके मैं पॉइंट वाइज जाता हूं। सबसे पहली बात, हमारा नीति शास्त्र कहता है कि हमें कृतज्ञता होनी चाहिए, यानी कि व्यक्तियों के प्रति, जीवित प्राणियों के प्रति, जो हमारे सहयोगी रहे हैं उनके प्रति कृतज्ञता रहे। यहां तक कि पेड़ पौधों के प्रति भी कृतज्ञता की बात होती है, और क्योंकि पेड़ पौधे मुझे ऑक्सीजन देते हैं, इस ब्रह्मांड को चलाने के लिए वायु देते हैं, इसलिए हम सब उनके प्रति कृतज्ञ हैं और उनकी पूजा अर्चना करते हैं। कहीं देवी देवताओं की स्थापना करते हैं, उसके माध्यम से प्रकृति के संरक्षण की बात होती है, चाहे हम सुदूर वैष्णो देवी की बात करें, चाहे हम किसी बड़े पर्वत पे बैठे हुए किसी अपने स्थापित किसी देवी देवता के बारे में बात करें, तो वो सब प्राकृतिक संरक्षण और प्रकृति के प्रति कृतज्ञता को लेता है। और वर्तमान विश्व अगर उस इन सब चीजों के प्रति, जो हमें जीवन देती हैं, ऐसी चीजों के प्रति कृतज्ञता लेके आएगा, तो निश्चित तौर पे ये दुनिया, ये ब्रह्मांड, ये विश्व सुखी होगा। दूसरी बात, हमारा नीति शास्त्र, हमारे एथिक्स कहते हैं कि हमें परोपकारी होना चाहिए, दूसरे के प्रति सहृदय होना चाहिए, विशेषकर उनके प्रति जिनको तत्काल इसकी आवश्यकता हो। इस कोविड के संकट में हम अपनी परवाह ना करते हुए दूसरों की मदद कर रहे थे। हिंदुस्तान में रहने वाले अमूमन 80% लोग, अगर कोई व्यक्ति परेशान था तो बिना इसकी चिंता किए हुए दूसरों के परोपकार में लगे हुए थे, और उसकी वजह से आप देखिए पूरा विश्व एक तरीके से लड़खड़ाया, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान उस परोपकार की भावना की वजह से आज लड़खड़ा के पुनः खड़ा होके और वैसे ही चल रहा है। अहिंसा, सबसे बड़ा मंत्र अहिंसा का है, और आज हम लोग गांधी जयंती के अवसर पर बैठे हुए हैं। आपके देश में, विभिन्न देशों में कहीं अभी 1 अक्टूबर भी है, बट हिंदुस्तान में आज 2 अक्टूबर की सुबह है। अहिंसा हमें जीव जंतुओं के प्रति ही नहीं, और किसी पे शारीरिक चोट करना ही हिंसा नहीं है, मानसिक चोट भी अहिंसा है। और जब इस कॉर्पोरेट वर्ल्ड में इस अहिंसा को आप उपयोग करेंगे, तो बड़ी आसानी से आप ये पाएंगे किस तरह से किसी व्यक्ति को लोग मानसिक चोट पहुंचा के उसको धीरे धीरे कुढ़ने पे मजबूर करते हैं। तो अगर एक प्राणी, एक इंसान इस हमारे सनातन धर्म का, इस हिंदुत्व का छोटा सा अंश भी अपने अंदर ग्रहण कर लेता है अहिंसा का, तब भी इस दुनिया का उद्धार हो सकता है। माता पिता और शिक्षकों के प्रति आदर का व्यवहार कहीं छुपा नहीं है। किस तरह से आज जब लोग आदर की भावना, सम्मान की भावना दूसरे लोगों के साथ नहीं रखते हैं, अपने वरिष्ठों के साथ नहीं रखते हैं, अपने गुरुओं के साथ नहीं रखते हैं, तो धीरे धीरे क्षीणता आती चली जाती है। और समाज जब नीचे जाएगा तो विकास अपने आप रुकता है। स्त्रीत्व के प्रति आदर, मां दुर्गा की पूजा से लेके मां सरस्वती की पूजा तक, मां रूपी स्त्री की पूजा हमने की है, और स्त्री का दर्जा सदैव समाज के अन्य मनुष्यों से एक स्तर ऊपर ही रखा है। जब ऐसी सोच के साथ जब ये समाज, ये दुनिया चलेगी, हिंदुत्व की सोच को अपने साथ रखेगी, तो निश्चित तौर पे ये दुनिया इस हिंदुत्व को अगर समझ पाई तो मुझे लगता है हर व्यक्ति इस हिंदुत्व को अपने अंदर समाहित करना चाहेगा। करुणा की भावना, करुणा, दया, और जब एक व्यक्ति ऐसा होता है जिस व्यक्ति के अंदर दया की भावना होती है, करुणा की भावना होती है, करुणा और दया की भावना बिल्कुल उस तरह से है, जो व्यक्ति अपने अंदर करुणा की भावना रखता है वो किसी के साथ, किसी भी प्राणी के साथ वो अन्याय कभी नहीं कर सकता। और जब सभी प्राणी एक दूसरे के साथ अन्याय नहीं करेंगे, मतलब न्यायपूर्वक रहेंगे, अन्याय नहीं करेंगे, तो जैसे जो सबसे बड़ी समस्या है आतंकवाद की आज विश्व में, ये स्वतः समाप्त हो जाए। जिस तरह के संसाधनों का प्रयोग करके, जिस तरह से टेक्नोलॉजी जो विकसित होती चली आई, मतलब जिस परिवर्तनशील समाज की बात करता है हिंदुत्व, उस परिवर्तन को अडॉप्ट करने की बात करता है, लेकिन अपनी संस्कृति को संरक्षित सुरक्षित रखते हुए, यानी कि हमारी जो मूल भावनाएं हैं 1 2 3 4, स्त्रीत्व के प्रति आदर, माता पिता के प्रति आदर, करुणा की भावना, अहिंसा की भावना, परोपकार की भावना, कृतज्ञता की भावना, इन सबको लेते हुए अगर ये समाज अपने आप चलेगा तो ना दंगे होंगे, ना आतंकवाद की घटनाएं होंगी, वनस्पतियों के प्रति प्रेम की भावना, मतलब किसी को नुकसान नहीं करना है, किसी को नुकसान ना करते हुए भी परिवर्तनशीलता को अपने अंदर रखे, परिवर्तनशीलता को अपने अंदर रखे और आधुनिकता को अपने साथ जोड़ के चलना है। इसका अर्थ बिल्कुल इस तरह से नहीं लगाना चाहिए कि लोग कहते हैं बार बार, कभी कभी जब हम अपने इस धर्म को अलग तरीके से लोग डिपिक्ट करते हैं, अलग तरीके से हमारी एथिक्स को, आस्थाओं को अलग तरीके से करते हैं, तो हमको अंधविश्वासी बताते हैं। हर चीज का, हर एक हमारी संस्कृति में उल्लिखित हमारे हर एक धर्म के हर एक सिद्धांत का वर्षों की शोध के बाद अगर वैज्ञानिकता निकलती है तो पीपल की पूजा से लेके नदियों की पूजा तक हर जगह उसका साइंटिफिक रीजन दिखाई देता है। जो विश्व आज समझने की कोशिश कर रहा है, जैसा मैंने बिल्कुल शुरुआत में कहा कि हमारे हिंदू ऋषियों ने सैकड़ों वर्षों तक दुनिया ब्रह्मांड की हर एक घटना को ऑब्जर्व करते हुए इस धर्म को, इस जीवन पद्धति को आत्मसात किया है, अंगीकृत किया है। तो कोई भी चीज, इस धर्म को मानने वाली कोई भी चीज ऐसी नहीं है जो साइंटिफिक ना हो। वर्तमान में जो साइंटिस्ट आए, वर्तमान में जो साइंटिस्ट हुए, उनकी थ्योरी भी ऑब्जर्वेशन बेस्ड है। उस ऑब्जर्वेशंस के साथ उन्होंने उसकी प्रामाणिकता से पुष्टि करी, और उस पुष्टि के साथ जब वो कोई थ्योरी देते हैं तो आइंस्टीन का चाहे ऊर्जा संरक्षण बनाए हम, चाहे न्यूटन जी का ग्रेविटेशनल बनाए, हमारे इस सनातन धर्म में, हमारे उपनिषदों में, हमारे वेदों में एक एक चीज वेल रिसर्च्ड है। और जो सूत्र वाक्य, जो एथिक्स में कह रहा हूं, जो एथिक्स एक ऋषि के जीवन में आपको देखने को मिल जाएंगे, उनकी प्रैक्टिस जो भी करेगा वो समाज को, दुनिया को नुकसान तो पहुंचा ही नहीं सकता। जो पेड़ पौधों की पूजा करने की बात करता हो, पेड़ पौधों की पूजा क्यों करनी है, उसका साइंटिफिक रीजन है। अगर पेड़ काटते जाएंगे तो ऑक्सीजन कहां से आएगी? आज जलवायु परिवर्तन की बात होती है, प्राकृतिक असंतुलन की बात होती है। जैव विविधता का संरक्षण हमें हमारा सनातन धर्म ऐसे ही शिक्षा दे देता है जिसको किसी को विशेष तौर पर शिक्षा लेने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती। सनातन घर में पैदा हुआ बच्चा जीवन के अपने पहले अध्याय से जो उसको अपनी माता से मिलता है, वहां से लेके उसके जीवन के हर होने वाली घटना में, उसके परिवार की हर होने वाली घटना, उसको दुनिया विश्व कैसे अच्छा चले, कैसे हमारा व्यवहार अच्छा हो, किस तरह से चले, इसको सिखाती चली आती है। सच्चे जीवन की बात होती है। सच्चे जीवन की बात करते हैं हमारे एथिक्स। धन का अर्जन तो करना है, क्योंकि बिना धन के अर्जन के कुछ भी संभव नहीं है, लेकिन धन का अर्जन करना है तो वैधानिक तरीके से करना है। अनैतिक और अवैधानिक इच्छाओं में संलग्न नहीं होना है। सच्चा जीवन बिताना हिंदू जीवन पद्धति का ही एक पक्ष है। सच्चाई का सिद्धांत ही केवल इस नीति शास्त्र का सबसे बड़ा अंग है। जब हमारे जीवन में सच्चाई होगी, सच्ची तरीके से हम अपनी बात को रखेंगे, अपने मन में जो भावना होगी उसको आगे लेके जाएंगे। जैसे हमारा मन होगा वैसे ही हमारे कर्म होंगे। इस स्थिति में जब हम रहेंगे तो निश्चित तौर पे मैं यकीन के साथ कह सकता हूं कि इस जीवन पद्धति के साथ जो भी जीवन जिएगा वो समाज का हित ही करेगा और सारा विश्व वसुधैव कुटुंबकम के भावना से आगे चलता रहेगा। संयम और इंद्रियों का निग्रह एक मनुष्य में आत्म संयम के गुण का विकास होना चाहिए, क्योंकि यही केवल मन को नियंत्रित करता है। जब आत्म संयम होता है तभी मन नियंत्रित होता है। आत्म संयम हटा तो मन नियंत्रित नहीं हुआ, और अनियंत्रित मन तालिबान को जन्म देता है। हमारी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति तो होती रहे, हमारी आकांक्षाओं की पूर्ति भी होती रहे, लेकिन हमारा सनातन ये कहता है, हमारा हिंदू धर्म ये कहता है, हमारी आकांक्षाओं की पूर्ति में अगर किसी व्यक्ति का नुकसान हो रहा है, हमारी आकांक्षाओं की पूर्ति में अगर किसी की आवश्यकताएं कट हो रही हो, किसी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति होने में बाधक हो रही हो हमारी आकांक्षाएं, तो निश्चित तौर पे हमें उन आकांक्षाओं को पूर्ति नहीं करना चाहिए। ऐसा संयम हमें अपने इंद्रियों पे बनाना है। त्रिकोण शुद्धि। अब त्रिकोण शुद्धि एक शब्द समझने के लिए आपको लगेगा अवनीश जी त्रिकोण शुद्धि बोल रहे, लगता है कि बिल्कुल पूरी तरह से आज उस प्रवचन में आ गए हैं जो प्रवचन हिंदू धर्म की तरफ ले जाएगा। ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं। ये हमारे एथिक्स इतने स्ट्रांग हैं, अगर आप सोचना शुरू करते हैं तो शायद हर एक घटना को, हर एक भौगोलिक घटना को आप ऐसे हर एक जीवन जीने वाले प्राणी को ऐसे लिंक करते चले जाएंगे कि आपको लगेगा कि नहीं, गीता पढ़िए, श्री कृष्ण जी के उपदेशों को जब आप अध्ययन करने का प्रयास करते हैं, उनको समझने का प्रयास करते हैं, और कुछ लोग जो उनको आत्मसात करने का अनुभव प्रयास करते हैं, तो ये पाते हैं कि अपने आप में वो ऋषि की भावना, अपने आप में एक ऐसी भावना डेवलप हो जाती है, और अपने आप में आपका कैरेक्टर ऐसा बिल्ड हो जाता है कि लगता है यार ये व्यक्ति तो बहुत अच्छा है। वैसे ही त्रिकोण शुद्धि की बात मैं करूं तो व्यक्ति के विचार, मेरे विचार और मेरी वाणी और मेरे कर्म, तीनों के बीच में सामंजस्य होना चाहिए। मेरे विचार कुछ और कह रहे हो, मेरी वाणी कुछ और कह रही हो, मेरे कर्म कुछ और तरीके से हो, ये नहीं हो सकता। क्योंकि जब विचारशील प्राणी होता है तो उसके मन में जो विचार आते हैं, और सनातन धर्म को मानने वाले व्यक्तियों के मन में जो विचार आते हैं, वो विचार परिष्कृत ही होते हैं। जब हम शरीर, मन और आत्मा तीनों की सच्चाई अगर होती है तो एक अच्छा प्राणी बनता है, और एक अच्छा प्राणी अच्छे समाज की रचना करता है, और अच्छा समाज सबको सुखी रखता है। मैं पुनः दोहराऊंगा, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः की भावना मन में लेते हुए ये प्राणी चलता है, और पूरा विश्व सुखी रहे, पूरा विश्व में वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना बनती रहती है। पारिवारिक जीवन, एक पुरुष और स्त्री के मध्य विवाह के माध्यम से निर्मित पति पत्नी का संबंध एक अटूट संबंध बनता है। जो लोग आज अकेले रहते हैं, पति पत्नी के साथ उनके बच्चे, और अगर उनकी एक पीढ़ी और उनके माता पिता भी उनके साथ हैं, तो अनुभव करिए कि जीवन कैसे आसान होता है, कैसे वर्तमान युग में उसकी प्रासंगिकता है। पति पत्नी दोनों जॉब करते हैं तो बच्चे न संस्कार पाते हैं, ना वो सानिध्य, वो प्यार पा पाते हैं, क्योंकि दोनों अपने दायित्व का निर्वहन में लगे होते हैं। और ये जब ये परिवार कुटुंब के रूप में एक साथ रहता है तो हमारे अपने माता पिता से हमारे बच्चे वो संस्कार भी प्राप्त करते रहते हैं, और कहीं भी कोई ऑब्स्टिकल नहीं आता। माता की संकल्पना, माता की संकल्पना हमारी सबसे बड़ी धरोहर, हमारी मां। और हमारा सनातन धर्म पृथ्वी को माता मानता है। मैंने अपने बचपन में देखा है, मेरी माता जी जब बिस्तर से उठती थी तो सदैव सबसे पहले पृथ्वी के पैर छू के अपने दिनचर्या की शुरुआत, दिन की शुरुआत करती थी। मतलब ये कल्पना, ये जीवन अगर किसी ने दिया है, पृथ्वी ने दिया है। वर्तमान परिदृश्य में, आज इस वर्तमान परिदृश्य में जब हम बात करते हैं तो कहते हैं कि ओजोन लेयर क्षत विक्षत हो रही है, नदियों का संरक्षण नहीं हो रहा है, हमारी वायु प्रदूषित हो रही है। यानी कि प्राकृतिक संसाधन जो भी हैं, जो भी प्रकृति है, इस प्राकृतिक जीवन के हर एक एस्पेक्ट्स की रक्षा करना, जल, जीवन यानी कि जैव विविधता बरकरार रखना, जमीन, तीनों की सुरक्षा करने का जो एथिक्स है, जो वैल्यू है, वो सनातन धर्म में आती है, हमारे हिंदुत्व में आती है। मैं अपने आप को समअप करता हूं। अगर ये विश्व हमारे एथिक्स का पे जीता है, एथिक्स पे चलता है, तो जो भी आने वाली समस्याएं हैं, आगे आने वाली पीढ़ियों को, हमारा धर्म अपना जीवन तो जीता ही है, बट आगे आने वाली पीढ़ियों को भी अच्छा जीवन मिले। ऐसा ना हो कि सारे प्राकृतिक संसाधनों का उपयोग हम ही कर जाएं और आगे आने वाली पीढ़ियां अभाव में जिए। हमारा धर्म कहता है कि हम इसके साथ रहें, आगे वाली पीढ़ी को ध्यान में रखते हुए अपने जीवन को जिए। सारा विश्व कुटुंब हो, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, सभी सुखी रहे, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिना। इसी भावना के साथ मैं अपनी वाणी को यहीं विराम देता हूं। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपका बहुत बहुत आभार।
All right, so I will begin with my speech. Namaskar, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants present at the very important Hindutva for Global Good HFGG Global Conference 2021. Friends, I am Mini Srivastav, a law professor at Amity University, Uttar Pradesh at Noida. In this conference, we all have assembled here to discuss and deliberate upon various aspects and facets of Hinduism, thereby highlighting the goodness in the great religion of Sanatana Dharma. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers, Hindu Heritage Foundation of America, and all the supporting partners for giving me the opportunity to speak at this august platform. Before starting the deliberation, I would like to specifically mention that I am speaking here only in my personal and not professional capacity as a follower of Sanatana Dharma. And to set the context of my main topic, I would actually first and foremost like to briefly deliberate on three phrases: Sanatana Dharma, Hindu, and Hindutva. So, what is Sanatana Dharma? Friends, it is made up of two words, Sanatan and Dharma. The word Sanatan is a Sanskrit word meaning eternal, that is, शाश्वत या हमेशा बना रहने वाला, अर्थात जिसका न आदि है न अंत है. Now, speaking of dharma, I hope many of us are aware that the real meaning of the word dharma is not same as the globally accepted definition of the word religion. The word comes from the Sanskrit root dhri, which means to sustain, or in simple Hindi, dharan karna. This means dharma is the most integral characteristics of someone or something, which, if taken away from them, then that something or someone will cease to exist. So, the basic nature or characteristic of something or someone would be called its dharma. Dharma could be that of an object or of a person. So, for a human being or manav, dharma implies duty. A person's dharma consists of duties that sustain them according to their innate characteristics, which are both spiritual and material in nature. So, our spiritual as well as material characteristics both can comprise of our own individual dharma. Among our revered shastras and religious texts, the definition of dharma are given primarily in Manusmriti and is deliberately in depth in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Without going in much details, as the topic of dharma itself can be spoken upon for hours and hours, we can simply say that the word Sanatan Dharma implies that ideal code of conduct for not just Hindus but for every human being, and that conduct which remains true and relevant in all times. Those values which have remained steadfast, withstanding the test of time. Here, I like to emphasize that dharma referred in our text is actually called Manav Dharma and not Hindu Dharma. Another much simpler definition of Sanatan Dharma could be an order which follows the knowledge system of Ved and its subsequent derivative texts like Upanishad, Darshan, Smriti, Puran, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc., as laid down by our most revered rishis, munis, acharyas, and gurus. Now, my next question is, what are those time-tested values which are considered to be the core of Sanatan Dharma? Some of them are Satya, truth; Ahimsa, non-violence; Daya, compassion; Shama, forgiveness; Dan, charity; Jap, chanting; Tap, penance; Yam Niyam, rules and regulations, Adi, जिनका शाश्वत महत्व है. So these time-tested values have been established in Vedas much prior to the origin of other religions. My next point is that since prehistoric times, Sanatan Dharma has been predominantly followed in entire subcontinent, and despite all the odds and circumstances that the followers of Sanatan Dharma have faced in varying times, it continues to be the largest religion in India. Now I would like to briefly touch upon who is a Hindu and what is Hinduism. Ironically, the word Hindu, which is our core identity in present times, does not find mention in our ancient texts. The word was derived from many references by which outsiders used to refer the people of subcontinent in the ancient times. It is said that many years ago, our ancestors adopted this word as our identity to separate ourselves from the foreign invaders that started invading and settling in our lands. Nonetheless, today we proudly embrace our identity as Hindu, and there is no ambiguity in the fact that we all are proud Hindus. Again, this topic merits a separate discussion forum on its own, and but without diving deep into that, being a law professor, I would like to touch upon the legal definition of Hindu as per our law. The Hindu Marriage Act 1955, it does not directly answers the question as to who is a Hindu, but it gives an idea as to whom does Hindu Marriage Act apply. So any person can be a Hindu by religion or by conversion or reconversion. So specifically, if we refer to the section 2 of Hindu Marriage Act, it says that anybody who is a Hindu by religion, and Hindu by religion means a child whose both the parents are Hindu, or any one parent is a Hindu and the child has been brought up as a member of a Hindu family, will be a Hindu by religion. A key point to be noted is a person who is not a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or Jew is governed by Hindu law unless it is proved that Hindu law is not applicable to such a person. So even people from people from Buddhism, Jain, and Sikhism also, in the wider context, if we see, will also be covered under Section 2, and Hindu Marriage Act would also apply to them. Also, those persons who are atheists and who believe in all faiths and in conglomeration of faiths may also fall under this class. So, this legal definition of Hindu stems from the age-old belief that anyone and everyone who lives in this nation can be called a Hindu unless he or she choose to give another identity to themselves, like another religion. Moving on, I would like to delve upon the very important word of Hindutva. What is Hindutva? I would like to delve on this the subtitle of the conference, Hindutva, the Essence of Hinduism. What is Hindutva, and does it have any connection with Hinduism? While answering this question, opinions of many thinkers come to our mind, from Swami Vivekanand to Swami Aurobindo to V.D. Savarkarji and many more. On the other hand, today we also see plethora of people from civil society who oppose and defame Hindutva as a tool and a policy of hatred towards minority communities. But again, as a law professor, I would like to quote India's legendary lawyer, late Shri Ram Jethmalani ji, on the Supreme Court judgment of Manohar Joshi versus Nitin Bhaurao Patil 1995. And as per this interview to Sunday Guardian in 2011, he states, and I quote, Hindutva is the way of life of Indian people and the Indian culture or ethos, and by no means it is an anti-minority portion. Further, Mr. Ram Jethmalani counters the opposers of Hindutva by stating that ordinarily Hindutva is understood as a way of life or a state of mind, which is not to be equated with or understood as religious Hindu fundamentalism. It is a fallacy and an error of law to proceed on the assumption that the use of the words Hindutva or Hinduism per se depicts an attitude which is hostile to all persons practicing any religion other than Hinduism. So he clearly says that this kind of perception of misconception which is being spread against Hinduism or Hindutva is actually a fallacy and error of law. He further states that the communal propaganda machinery relentlessly disseminates Hindutva as a communal word, something that has also been embedded in the minds and language of opinion leaders, including politicians, media, civil society, and intelligentsia. He earnestly requests them to discover the true meaning of the word Hindutva as defined in Supreme Court judgment before they use it with communal overtone. He expresses pain by stating that it is indeed very unfortunate if, in spite of the liberal and tolerant features of Hinduism recognized in judicial decisions, these terms are misused by anyone during the elections to gain any unfair political advantage. Let the manipulators of the word Hindutva realize that by articulating it with religious connotations is in violation of letter and spirit of the Supreme Court judgment. Now, I move to the topic that I have chosen today, which is select contemporary global challenges and finding answers in Hinduism. Friends, I would like to flag 4 global challenges of today's world, which is affecting all of us directly and indirectly. The first one being unhealthy lifestyle and growing mental stress. I think we all will be in agreement that one of the banes of the so-called modern civilization is the adverse effect on our physical and mental health caused by our evolving unhealthy lifestyle and growing mental stress. The solutions that Hinduism can provide in tackling these miseries of modernity could lie in our ancient systems of yoga, Ayurveda, and vegetarianism. To tell you more about yoga, which I am sure all of us know, I would like to borrow the words of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, as per his speech in United Nations General Assembly. He states, and I quote, "Yoga is an invaluable gift of India's ancient tradition. It embodies unity of mind and body, thought and action, restraint and fulfillment, harmony between a man and nature, a holistic approach to health and well-being. It is not about exercise, but to discover the sense of oneness with yourself, the world, and nature. By changing our lifestyle and creating consciousness, it can help in well-being. Let us work towards adopting the International Yoga Day." Unquote. Today, across the globe, millions of people are accepting the benefits of yoga and making it part of their regular lifestyle. Moving on, another facet, very important facet, which as far as health is concerned, is Ayurveda. Ayurveda places great emphasis on prevention and encourages the maintenance of health through close attention to balance in one's life, right thinking, diet, lifestyle, and the use of herbs. Knowledge of Ayurveda enables one to understand how to create this balance of body, mind, and consciousness according to one's own constitution and how to make lifestyle changes to bring about and maintain this balance. Moving on, I would also like to stress upon vegetarianism. Vegetarianism, simply speaking, implies practice of eating plants and their product grains, fruits, vegetables, and nuts, and abstaining from eating meat or even animal products. According to the WHO website, there's a page wherein they discuss healthy diet. So there it is mentioned that there is a clear evidence that shows the benefits of a diet high in fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and grains, but lower in salt, free sugars, and fats, particularly saturated and trans fats. So indirectly, even the WHO is also subscribing to the vegetarian diet by mentioning the components of vegetarianism. Similarly, there can be countless other examples like Surya Namaskar, Sandhya Vandana, etc., where practice of our traditional value systems lead to undoubted benefit to both physical and mental well-being of humans. Friends, now I would like to move on to the next concern, which is again global in nature, that is rising intolerance towards each other. Today, no one can deny the world that no one can deny that the world is facing the rising intolerance towards divergent viewpoints. We are collectively, as a human race, are becoming more and more impatient and less accommodating towards those who have opinion which is different than ours. All this is the source of major problems at domestic level till international and global level. To counter this challenge, we all can look and learn. We all can look at and learn from our timeless culture of Hinduism, which allows and promotes multiple thoughts to coexist under the one umbrella of Sanatana Dharma. Dissent with respect is something which we deeply believe in. For example, we have different sampradaya system within Sanatana Dharma, whose definitions and philosophies about nature of Bhagwan, Prakriti, and their relations with all living beings, plus ways of living, meditation, etc., are completely different, and in some cases almost opposite to each other. But the one common point of all these sampradaya is that they have been taught to respect each other and accept each other's existence without malice and prejudice. This without malice and prejudice is what I would like to underline. For example, Vaishya Sampradaya and Shaiv Sampradaya and Shakt Sampradaya. Another example could be Dvaitwadis and Advaitwadis. Despite all their differences, they continue to give each other mutual respect and coexist peacefully and make it a point to never insult or demean each other. Moving on, I would like to flag the third global challenge, one of the very important, one of the very serious global challenges that we are facing, that is fundamentalism. As per Collins' dictionary, fundamentalism is the belief in the original form of a religion or theory without accepting any later ideas. It is also a source of some of the major conflicts in the world today. To counter this, the world can learn from the principle of assimilation that Hinduism preaches and follows. For example, the acceptance of Sri Ramcharitmanas, in spite of it being a non-Sanskrit text, because it was written in Avadi at that age, it is accorded equal respect at par with our ancient Sanskrit Shastras. The power of assimilation should not be undermined, as it is probably because of this trait our Sanatana Dharma has stood the test of ages till date. Perhaps the only example in the history of the world that, in spite of so many invasions through several centuries, the original culture and the tradition of a region has not only survived but still continues to be its dominant religion. Moving on, I would like to focus on another global challenge, which is terrorism. One of the biggest challenges to humanity today is terrorism. It may appear that terrorism emerges from fundamentalism and intolerance, but it is basically a mental deformity. In my opinion, it is a mental deformity which induces a cruelty in a person to such an extent that makes him or her justify extreme violence against innocent people. To counter this deviant mental trait, answer, in my opinion, lies in the core values of Sanatana Dharma, which are Daya, Shama, and Ahimsa. Compassion, forgiveness, and non-violence. In my opinion, if these are three traits which are counted as one of the 10 lakshan of Manav Dharma as per Manusmriti, and if any person is, I would say, continuously being given these three values are instilled in any person, we will see that people, less and less people would walk on the path of terrorism. Daya, Shama, and Ahimsa. If these traits are followed by any society, it will lead to more humane and peaceful society. Friends, apart from these challenges and how Hinduism can actually be used to counter these challenges, I would also like to lay stress on reforms that have been made in Hindu society. I would also like to touch upon a common misconception against the Hindu society, which accuses us to be orthodox and anti-reformists. I concede that with time, the Sanatana Dharma also was plagued with some serious inhuman ills and malpractices like sati pratha, bigamy, and casteism based on birth, leading to untouchability. Friends, I am very proud of saying this, that we collectively as a society and as a country have taken the following constitutional and statutory reforms in this regard. Number one, we passed the banning of sati system under Bengal Sati Regulation Act in 1829. Also, there is enactment of the Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987. Further, bigamy is prohibited under Section 494 of Indian Penal Code 1860. To counter casteism and untouchability, we have consciously taken the following steps, namely, constitutionally guaranteed fundamental human rights, abolition of untouchability in 1950 by Article 17 of the Constitution of India, Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989, provision of reservation in places like educational institutions for employment opportunities, etc., establishing social welfare departments and national commissions for welfare of scheduled castes and tribes. In my opinion, these steps that we have taken are quite revolutionary. The society may still be plagued by certain ills. I do not say that everything has become perfect, but we have consciously, in our legal landscape, we have taken these steps in order to bring changes in the social landscape, and I myself feel that the changes have already started. Changes are being done for years now. At the end, I would like to conclude by saying that in order to improve ourselves, we must resort to the timeless practice of introspection, that is, Atmachintan or Atmavishleshan. We must stay humble and continuously strive to become better version of ourselves than what we were yesterday. Also, we must reflect upon some key questions. Uh, that is, have we understood the true values of Sanatan Dharma, which as guided by our religious shastras and our revered acharyas and gurus? Have we really understood those values? And number two, how far are we following these values in our daily lifestyle? Friends, there are several challenges and threats that are pitted against our culture, values, and way of life. However, in my opinion, one of the biggest challenge is that if we can stay true to our old, timeless Sanatani values, and what is the real and the real test is faced by each and every Hindu today. The path suggested by Sanatan Dharma is virtuous, but it is not easy to attain, and straying is very easy. But if we stray from the path, then the very forces against which we are raising our voices today would have won. So we need to stay conscious, and we need to continuously strive to walk on the path that our great Sanatan Dharma has shown us. Thank you. Namaskar.
Namaste and greetings to every one of you present here. Myself, Dr. K. Parameshwaran, an Associate Professor of Law and former Dean of Academics at Gujarat National Law University, Gujarat, India. I teach, train, and do research on the integration of law, religion, spirituality, and justice, and also bring the confluence from psychotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, interfaith building, and so on. I thank wholeheartedly the organizers of this wonderful conference, Hindutva for Global Good, the Global Conference 2021, for giving me this opportunity to share some of my insights that I have been passionate about since many years. The theme for me is Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, spirituality and Hindutva, the interface with Indian constitutional law and justice. Before I explain the beautiful interface, the confluence, the integration which is already there between these two value systems, I would like to bring quickly certain broad outlines in order to have a context for us. My first point would be Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma, spirituality, and Hindutva. They are not different things. They are one and the same. They all represent one core body of integrated and continuous stream of knowledge, values, and practices that are inclusive in nature. As a result of which, this continuity, it can have multiple interpretations, multiple understandings, and multiple applications simultaneously without having any conflict among their interrelational parts. These two interesting features of one integrated, continuous thought, value, and practices, as well as its simultaneity without any discord and dissension, It brings the results of the inclusivity, universalism, non-sectarianism, individual and collective goals, the harmony between these two, the sustainability with flora and fauna, the ecology and its respect, and continuously developing and evolution oriented. This feature brings the peace, the progress, the perfection without any disturbance to anything or to anyone. If you take it to a little deeper level, which I would demonstrate a little later, that this Hindutva, Hinduism, spirituality, and Sanatana Dharma, because of this beautiful integrated stream of continuous flow of interconnected, inclusive, universal, non-sectarian thoughts, values, and practices, it automatically manifests justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, which the Indian Constitution talks about, which the justice systems are in need of. So I would say that Hindutva or Hinduism, spirituality or Sanatana Dharma, they are not hostile to Indian Constitution or to any legal and justice values. All the secular, democratic, social, republic elements that we speak about in the Indian Constitution have been part of this wonderful culture, civilizational ethos, thoughts, values, and practices for several thousands of years. We all know the oneness, the ekatvam, is actually equality in constitutional law at a social level, samatvam. We all know the mutuality which we speak about, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, is actually the constitutional liberty at a deeper level. Similarly, the harmony that we all know is the adveshta maitraha karunaha, is constitutional fraternity, which is sarva bhuta hide ratha. So on one side, Hinduism, Hindutva, spirituality, Sanatana Dharma. On the other side, Constitution, its values, the legal systems and justice and so on. They are actually intricately interconnected. As a result of which, Indian Constitution and its application, the Indian constitutional values, the guarantees require Hinduism, require Sanatana Dharma, require spirituality, require Hindutva, the Hinduness, the Hindu thought, the Hindu belief, the Hindu value, the Hindu practice, the Hindutvam. Not only for realizing the goals of the Indian Constitution for India, but as a model for the whole world, for the whole humanity. But the mistake that we do is that the constitutional law, which has ingrained these values, the constitutional makers, the founders of the Indian Constitution, they were aware of this Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, the Hindu values, thoughts, practices, Hindutva, and so on. They incorporated these universal values in the preamble itself. But unfortunately, we make a mistake that the Constitution, which is currently undergoing a different lens of interpretation, and it is being used as an interpretative tool to diminish the value of a civilizational and dharmic value systems of several thousands of years, which sustained everything, which will sustain everything, and that is going to sustain forever. We need to change our interpretation. And I found the hate campaigns that are going on, the criticisms on Hinduism, Hindutva, Sanatana Dharma, spirituality, and so on, they all lack objectivity. There is no rationality in their explanations. There is no rigor of research to explain things. And they all conveniently ignore to understand and connect the past history, the glory of it, and the sustenance of it throughout the period of disturbances, And it's still the futuristic capabilities that this Hindu thought has, this Hindu values have. So Hindutva or Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma or spirituality is not antithetical to Indian constitution. Rather, Hindutva, spirituality, Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, this Hindu value, thought, practice, one integrated, continuous stream of a body of knowledge, values, and practices, having multiplicity as well as simultaneity and sustainability, is crucial for the foundation, is crucial for the successful implementation of the Constitution. Otherwise, Constitution can become ineffective, which we are seeing and visible in the few neighboring countries, those who formed the Constitution but are not able to make them work. Whereas the Indian thought, the Hindu thought, the Sanatana Dharmic thought, they are able to move, they are able to sustain, and they are able to take it forward. Because of this inclusive nature, because of this universal nature, because of its non-sectarianness, because of this deep respect for ecology, flora and fauna, because of the balance between the individual liberties and the collective liberties and so on. So to put it in a nutshell, Hindutva is a broad, all-inclusive, uniting framework that has nourished all the cultures and religions in the entire region in and around India. And it is going to still nourish. Because of it, India could become a vibrant democracy. The regional parts that abandoned this, they have almost become failed states. They have seen violence in their state inside, leading to civil wars and so on. Hence, the continuance of Hinduism, the continuance of Hindutva, the continuance of Sanatana Dharma values, the Bharatiya tradition, its culture, is critical for whole humanity, is critical for future humanity. We cannot avoid this. Now let me explain the theme that is given to me: Hindutva, Hinduism, spirituality, Sanatana Dharma on one side, Indian constitution, the legal systems, the justice, equality, liberty, fraternity on the other side. Where is the interface? One wonders. For that, we need to understand what do we mean by Indian idea of the Hindu spirituality, the Sanatana Dharma, the Hindutva, the Hinduism in its core insights, and we need to understand what Indian constitution represents. To put it very simply, we all know what is Hinduism, what is Sanatana Dharma, spirituality, yoga, and so on. But I will just give a simple explanation of it in order to bring the interface between this value system and the value system which we are struggling to achieve, which are there from the Constitution. So to put it very simply, the spirituality, the Hinduism, the Hindu thought, the Hindu practice, the nature of life, the view of life, Sanatana Dharma, Hindutva, they all just speak about one thing, that there is a greater reality other than all these, which we know. There is a greater reality other than the mind, the emotion, sense, and the body, which we are aware of, which we call ourselves as the personality. Other than that, there is a greater reality which is surrounding all these, surrounding everything, inside everything, above everything, below, all around. And an awakening to that greater reality, an awakening to that zone of experience, which is experiential, it is scientific, it is rational. An awakening to that greater reality gives us the experience of something in our own life. What is that? The experience of the oneness, the experience of the mutuality, the experience of harmony. Satyam Ridham Brihat. This is the core experience of Sanatana Dharma, the core practice of Hinduism, Hindutva, Hinduism, yoga, and so on. What more do you need when we experience something of the unity and oneness? What more do you need when we experience mutuality at all levels? What more do you need when we experience the harmony inside? As a result of which, the individual who, having upon that experience, enters into the world again and then expresses these things, brings these things in every aspect of life. In fact, this is the one that has sustained everything. This is the Hinduism, the Hindu values, the Hindu practices, Sanatana Dharma, spirituality, and so on. An awareness or an awakening to that greater reality other than our mind, emotion, sense, and body. And the experience of it is the oneness, the unity, the mutuality, the harmony, which, if you take it to a social level, which we bring it to a world level, which we bring it to an individual level, it becomes equality, liberty, fraternity on constitutional terms. What is there as oneness and unity becomes constitutional equality. What is there as multiplicity and mutuality becomes liberty in constitutional terms. What is there as that sense of harmony becomes the fraternity on constitutional terms. As a result of which we get the dignity, the unity, the integrity which the Constitution spoke about, speaks about, and wants all of us to achieve. This is the experience, and this is the expression. This is the knowledge. This is the system of thought. It is most rational, scientific, most objective, and yet it is free from all rigidity, and yet it is free from all kinds of reductionism, because it allows each and every individual to have that experience in themselves, which is unique for each and everyone, and then bring it back to his life or her life, and then impact it in whatever one is dealing with. If you see the Indian Constitution on the other side, it says, the preamble says, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. That is the nature of the state. What does the state would do? It will assure its citizens, secure its citizens, justice which is social, economic, political, liberty, equality, fraternity, dignity, unity, and integrity. Constitution has given us the framework. We have created the Constitution. We the people, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into, and then we are securing and assuring our citizens to achieve justice, social, economic, political. And then we will bring equality, liberty, fraternity. And then we will assure and secure dignity, unity, and integrity. This is the thought process. This is the roadmap. This is the direction that which is given to us. But how do we practice it? Where is the process? The Constitution, which is the framework which is given to us, which we only created, the constitutional makers, the great thinkers, they created this Constitution with this idea, and putting this in the preamble, they have left it to the people to achieve it. That's why Constitution starts, we the people of India, having solemnly resolved to create India into a, and then it goes on. So in order to make the Constitution working, in order to manifest the Constitution, in order to fulfill and accomplish all the guarantees that are there in the Constitution, justice, social, economic, political, equality, liberty, fraternity, dignity, unity, integrity, we need an experience by which we will live. That experience is found in the Hindu body of thought. That is there in the Sanatana Dharma, that is there in the spirituality, that is there in the Hindutva. Otherwise, where are these? How do we practice it? It has given us the road, Constitution has given us the framework. But the framework, in order to bring it to life, we need values, we need systems, we need thoughts which will awaken us to that greater reality that is not outside us, it is inside us, it is surrounding us, it is everywhere. That is what Sanatana Dharma is all about. So that which is there everywhere, that which is there inside, that which is there above, that which is there inside, that which is there behind and below, and that which is there eternal since time immemorial. and that which is there transcendent, that which is there cosmic, universal, and that which is there in the world, that which is there in the individual, that which is there in the collective, it is there in the animate and the inanimate, and each and everything, unless and until we start reflecting in ourselves to see this kind of innate, inclusive, universal thing without any division, without any sectarianism. We need a body of values, we need a body of thoughts, we need a body of practices. That body, that whole basket of values, practices is the Hinduism, Hindutva, Sanatana Dharma, and spirituality. So this becomes very clear that if you want constitution to be achieved, if you want all the constitutional guarantees to be achieved, we cannot avoid a system of practice, a system of values, a system of thought process, which is inclusive, universal, non-sectarian, bringing a balance between individual and the collective, respecting the ecology, the flora and the fauna, the sustainability, and finally development-oriented and continuously allowing the evolution to take place, the developments to take place. That's why the core idea of the Sanatana Dharma is Satyam Ritam Brihat, that which is the truth, the Sat, Ritam, that which is harmonious, and Brihat, that which is constantly expanding and unfolding. What is that? It is there inside us. It is there in the Hindu thought. So in order to make the constitution working for all of us, we need to apply this. Now the question comes, how do we apply this? It must be brought to the level of education. It must be brought to the level of each and every individual life. Education is the starting point, the source of it. I have introduced that kind of a subject in my university, Gujarat National University, where I have been teaching for the last 6 years. Now, conversely, you see the other side of it. Very interesting. Even the justice which the Constitution talks about, that is social, economic, and political, or the equality, liberty, and fraternity, they are also constantly struggling and expanding. The Sanatana Dharma, the spirituality, the yoga, the Hinduism, the Hindutva, and so on, which talks about Satyam, Ritam, Brihat, the oneness, the unity, the mutuality, the multiplicity, the harmony, and so on. Even the Constitution is struggling to achieve that. If you see, I used to give a simple example of Article 14 or Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which got enshrined as an enacted provision in the Constitution in the year 1950. It is one and the same. The Article 14, the Article 21 remains the same. But in the year 2021, if you see the graph of what are all the interpretations that we have given to Article 14 and Article 21, it has continuously expanded, continuously unfolded itself. Now the question is, are we going to go by trial and error approach? Are we going to go by this analytical approach, which are very costly, which are very slow and damaging in between? And if you go by this kind of a trial and error approach, and if you go by this kind of analytical approach, it is not bringing the bindingness. It is not addressing the challenges which we are facing. And this is very much required. And I really appreciate the organizers of this wonderful conference who have worked so much to bring this. The core 5 challenges of the modern life, or the modern state, and the governance and the legal systems all around the world, is that individual and collective conflict, how do we reconcile? Artificial intelligence and privacy, how do we reconcile? Science and spirituality, how do we reconcile? Interdependence and independence, how do we reconcile? Shared values and alienating values, how do we reconcile? The reconciliation is in this thought process, in this value system, in this practice of Hinduism, Hindutva, Sanatana Dharma, spirituality, and so on. So what we, the people, in the preamble have promised for all of us needs to be practiced and needs to be brought. The Hinduism, the Hindutva, the spirituality, the Sanatana Dharma, and so on. And the practice must start in our own life, whatever that we do. With these thoughts, I would like to conclude here And those who are interested in discussing this theme more, and I would like to share my research with all of you. And I once again thank each and everyone for giving me this opportunity, particularly the organizers of this conference. Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, friends. My topic is Vedic knowledge and modern science. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Dear August family, we as a global family fail to understand the deep and real meaning of the Hindu holy books written by our great sages and ancestors. Psychologically, if we see, it is advised from our ancient days to explain any idea or concept by building stories or some personal relevance around particular topic or subject to make it more symbolic, interesting, apt, and easy to remember to the listeners. However, this concept by our sages didn't turn out well with our future generations. Without going in specifics of it, they just interpreted it as symbolically without understanding it scientifically. Every knowledge, literature, concept written as some message was actually a deeper scientific and technological concept, design methodology, information about medicine and surgery, advice on physical, mental, and social health, nurturing and balancing environment, life management and management of work, political and economic consideration. The crux is to build healthy society socially, economically, so that the world and the country goes with the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning the whole world is our family. Progression in science and technology has been the major reason for the growth of human civilization. India has been contributing to the fields of science and technology since ancient times. Even today, what we term as traditional knowledge is actually based on scientific reasoning. The history of scientific discoveries and development in India dates back to Vedic era. Hindu ancestors, sages, had this great knowledge not just on paper but implemented many concepts practically on ground with base skills and design at that time. We can see various temples, metalwork, architectural beauty, mathematical calculation, surgical practices. Why Indians have built so many incredible architecturally marvelous temples in thousands all over the world? Were they so rich to spend wealth on this activity? The answer is yes. The eternal Sanatana Hindu culture blessed them with wisdom, intelligence, hard work, spirituality, and most important, research in every field of life to make humanity prosperous and peaceful. Their quest for knowledge, manufacturing, and trading made it to the world's largest economy for thousands of years. The German philosopher Gottfried von Herder once said, mankind's origin can be traced to India, where the human mind got the first shapes of wisdoms and virtue. From the complex layout of Harappan towns to the existence of iron pillars in Delhi, it is evident that India's indigenous technologies had been very sophisticated. They included the design and planning of water supply, traffic flow, natural air conditioning, complex stonework, and construction engineering. The Indus Valley Civilization built world's first society with planned towns, underground drainage system, civil sanitation, hydraulic engineering, and air cooling architecture. While other ancient civilizations of the world were small towns with one central complex, the Indus Valley Civilization had the distinction of being spread across a region about the half size of Europe. Weights and linguistic symbols were standardized across the vast geography for a period of over 1,000 years. They remained as the world's most peaceful and prosperous nation for centuries. Ancient Indians were involved in a quest to know more about life and its purpose. Every divergent view had a place in the discussion, and no one was killed for his or her contradictory view of the life or God. Every thought has its place in Indian spiritualism. Peace and quest for true knowledge, spiritually and scientifically, remain the basic DNA of ancient Hindu civilization. The place of worship for Hindus are temples, whose architecture is another science. Now, let's have a look on why should we visit temples. Magnetic and electric waves are constantly circulating inside the earth. When we build a temple, architects and engineers select a piece of land where these waves are available in plenty. The chief idol is placed in the center of the temple. This place is also known as Garbhagriha or Mulasthana. The temple is built and then the idol is initiated with a puja commonly known as Prana Pratishtha. The idol is placed where magnetic waves are highly active. During the placement of idol, they bury some copper plates beneath the idol. The plates are inscribed with Vedic scripts. These copper plates absorb magnetic waves from the earth and radiate to the surrounding. Therefore, if a person who regularly visits a temple and walks around the idol clockwise, his or her body absorbs magnetic waves and boosts positive energy, leading a healthy life. Almost all Hindu temples have big bells which one has to ring before entering inside. The science behind this is overwhelming. Temple bells are manufactured with a mix of different metals in specific proportion. These include cadmium, lead, copper, zinc, nickel, chromium, and manganese. The mixing and proportion of metals, which while making, is the real vision of science. The bells produce a distinct sound on ringing. The sound and vibrations are so distinct that it creates a connection between both sides of the brain. Also, the sharp sound and vibration last until 7 seconds in echo mode, which is enough to touch 7 healing centers of the body. With the sound, mind becomes empty of all the thoughts and it enters in a position of trance to a regular visitor to temples. It becomes very receptive, ready to take new ideas and free the mind from all the chaos going through the mind. Many additional benefits such as eradication of negative thoughts, improving concentration, maintaining balance of mind, helps in ailment. Factually, Hindu religion is the oldest religion existing in the world, but the science behind Hindu rituals and worshipping methods are far more advanced than present days. It has been proved innumerable times that the belief system behind Hindu religion is connected with science and technology. The 1,000-pillar hall of Madurai Meenakshi Amman temple has absolutely zero echo. We can very well gauge the knowledge of our ancestors about the concept of sound. German philosopher Schopenhauer writes in his monumental work, The World as Will and Representation. In the whole world, there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of the Upanishads. It has been the solace of my life, it will be the solace of my death. The knowledge of Upanishads is the jewel for all those who not only appreciate the universal hospitable culture of Indian subcontinent, but also those who want to get to know the pure knowledge of the worldview and cosmic existence. Now it is accepted that India was intellectually developed about 2,000 years before the Europeans started exploring the theories of linguistics, social sciences, mathematics, philosophy, and psychology. Mathematics. The history of scientific discoveries and development in India dates back to Vedic era. Aryabhatta, the famous mathematician of the Vedic era, invented zero. The concept of squares, rectangles, circles, triangles, fractions, and the ability to express number 10 to the power 12, differential calculus, algebraic formulae, and astronomy all had their origin in Vedic literature. The decimal system was already in use during the Harappan civilization. This is evident in their use of weights and measures. Iron and steel. Iron and steel have literally been the pillars of modern civilization. Ancient India was pioneer in developing the technology of producing rust-free iron. This metal from India was famous in Europe for sword making. The famous iron pillar of Delhi is a testimony to that technology, which is almost rust-free even today. Farming techniques and fertilizers. Indian farming technology was mostly indigenously developed and was ahead of its time. It included soil testing technique, crop rotation method, irrigation plants, application of eco-friendly pesticides and fertilizers, storage methods for crops, etc. Physics. Werner Heisenberg, German physicist, once said, after the conversations about Indian philosophy, some of the ideas of quantum physics that had seemed so crazy suddenly made much more sense. The concept of atoms, molecules, and matter can be traced to Vedic era. Moreover, the concept of astronomy and metaphysics are all described in Rig Veda, an ancient Hindu text of Vedic era. Rishi Bhaskaracharya, a famous ancient Hindu astronomer, once said, objects fall on Earth due to a force of attraction by the Earth. Therefore, the Earth, the planets, constellations, moon, and sun are held in their respective orbit due to this attraction. Approximately 1200 years later, Sir Isaac Newton rediscovered this phenomena and called it as law of gravity. Medicine and surgery. Ayurveda. Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge, is probably the oldest structured system of medical science in the world. Proper knowledge about various ailments, diseases, symptoms, diagnosis, and cure is the basis of Ayurveda. Many scholars like Charaka and Shrushruta have made invaluable contribution to Ayurveda by inscribing in written form as found in ancient manuscripts. Embryology. The Vedic scriptures are proven true historically and scientifically. More than 5,000 years ago, in the Vedic scriptures called Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 31, the unique information on the development of the embryo was already explained beautifully. Aristotle was the first Vaishnava to describe the concept of embryology, but his research was very limited compared to the literary description mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam Garbhopanishad. Shipping and shipbuilding. Shipbuilding was one of India's major export industries. Medieval Arab sailors purchased boats from India. Even the Portuguese, instead of buying from Europe, also obtained these boats from India. Some of the world's largest and most sophisticated ships were built in India. The compass and other navigation tools were already in use in India much before Europe. Using their expertise in the science of maritime travel, Indians participated in the earlier known ocean-based trading system. Art of navigation was born in River Sindhu 6,000 years ago. This astrolabe, used as ancient navigation system, was found in the Geneva Museum of Science History. Rama Setu. The Setu or bridge lies between Pamban in Rameshwaram to the Thalli Mannar in Sri Lanka, is nothing but a masterpiece of brilliant engineering. The construction of the bridge is an astounding thing that the world still wonders at the knowledge and skills of our ancient engineers. Now, let's understand scientific ways of rituals and spiritual practices. First, why is food not allowed to eat during eclipse? Why darba or hodi grass is kept near food during this time? During eclipse, sun is obstructed by moon or earth, due to which ultraviolet rays and blue light wavelength doesn't reach to Earth in sufficient quantity. Therefore, it results in increase in bacterial level in the cooked food. If we eat the same food, it may result in illness. Therefore, our sages suggested that not to cook or eat food during that period. Nanoparticles on this holy grass called dharma protects the food from harmful radiation. It is proved through scientific research as well. Second, chanting Om mantra. Chanting Om is believed to reduce blood pressure and control heart rates. If Om is voiced after taking a deep breath, it enhances the sense of alertness and the concentration. Third, why should we not sleep with our head towards the north? Our body has its own magnetic field, also called as heart's magnetic field. Likewise, Earth also has its own magnetic field, which is from south to the north. If we sleep with our head facing the north, we are letting our magnetic field go asymmetric to Earth's magnetic field. This can bring about problems related to blood pressure, and our hearts needs to work harder in order to overcome this asymmetry of magnetic fields. The second reason is the presence of iron in our body. Due to asymmetric magnetic field, iron gets congregated in the brain, which can cause a lot of health problems like headache, Alzheimer's disease, cognitive decline, Parkinson's disease, and brain degeneration. Fourth, how our happiness index increases. There are four hormones which determine a human's happiness: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. Techniques of pranayama, yoga, and meditation not only helps in well-being physically and mentally, but also adds to better living and happy life by inducing these hormones in required quantity. Fifth, why Indian bride wear ring in toe? Why Indian bride wear ring in toe? In Indian culture, brides are made to wear ring in toe. In Indian tradition, wearing silver ring in second toe is being followed from thousands years. It symbolizes
Namaste and good morning from South Africa. We were having our first spring rains. Thank you that I could be here with you this morning. I will be speaking this morning about Hindus' relationship with deities, the expression of the divine through conceptual metaphor, focusing on examples of conceptual metaphors for Lord Shiva. So in English, we describe God as ineffable. Which means beyond the scope of words, too great to explain in words. The divine, being infinite and incorporeal, is just beyond the scope of human comprehension, beyond the comprehension of our finite and limited human minds in this limited human body. The nature or existence of the divine can therefore not be adequately expressed through language, because language is a product of our human minds. Yet we do speak about God. We do describe the divine, and we express our experiences and our relationships with our devas and devis according to ordinary everyday language. So the question arises, how is it possible that we are able to speak about the divine and about our experiences? Well, today I'll be exploring that question from the point of view of cognitive linguistics, which is a branch of linguistics that, broadly speaking, deals with the relationship between language and our minds. Cognitive linguistics holds that the mind and the body function in an integrated way. And so as humans, we experience the world through our senses, but our experiences in the material world shape the mental and the conceptual world that we use for language. Today's discussion is based on the cognitive linguistics theory of conceptual metaphor. This is a conceptual operation which allows us to conceptualize, so to think of one thing in terms of another thing. So typically what this means is thinking or expressing a thought, a feeling, something abstract in terms of something more concrete. For example, in English, it's common to conceptualize life in terms of a journey and ourselves as travelers on that journey. We see this expressed when we speak about things like, I've come so far in life, I feel stuck right now, I just don't know which way to go. So in this life is a journey conceptual metaphor, we can identify several correspondences between the act of going on a journey and the act of living life. A journey has a start and an end, and in life we have a physical birth and a physical death. On a journey we have a destination and we have a map to help us reach that destination. In life we have plans, and we have plans to help us reach our goals. If we're on a journey, the road might be in such poor condition that it's difficult to travel. In life, we might face struggles. So we see these parallels or correspondences that we draw between our understanding and our knowledge, or maybe our experience of what it is to go through a journey in the real world, and we transfer that onto our experience of life. So we can use concrete images and experiences to explain things that are more abstract. So it's crucial to understand, though, that when we speak about conceptual metaphor and cognitive linguistics, we are not referring to a literary device, to a feature of literature. Rather, we are referring to a feature of thought. In the words of the linguists who pioneered conceptual metaphor theory, George Lakoff and Mark Johnson, we think in metaphors. As this indicates, conceptual metaphors are not consciously created for a specific purpose, but rather they arise automatically as part of our conceptual system. When we use metaphors, it therefore reflects a way of thinking or a way of feeling about something. While this isn't universal in nature, and it does according to languages and cultures, there are examples of many conceptual metaphors that transcend language and culture. For example, the metaphor that time is motion along a path, where we imagine time as being movement along a path, with the future as being ahead of us and the past as being behind us. So when we look at communication about the divine, be it in sacred texts or everyday language, which is what I'm looking at today, everyday conversation, that communication tends to be highly metaphorical in nature, because we're speaking about something that we cannot see, touch in the physical world, but we draw on our concrete human experience to convey knowledge of this unobservable, intangible plane of divine experience and existence. Conceptual metaphor, being an aspect of human thought and therefore human language, is bountiful in their conversation, and we can see examples of it on internet sites, on social media, in our online interaction. And here we find that if we look at posts and chats in everyday conversation, people use a plethora of conceptual metaphors when they speak about the divine. For the purposes of today's talk, I'm going to be looking specifically at conceptual metaphors, or at metaphors that speak about and conceptualize one of our devas in particular, and that is Lord Shiva. If we look online, and this is where I've taken my data from quotes, from memes, from discussions, from comments that people make online, we see that people speak about Lord Shiva in a number of ways. He is often spoken about as a loving father, taking care of his children. Often he's spoken about light, about warm and nurturing sunshine. And with life commonly being conceptualized as a journey, it is perhaps unsurprising that Lord Shiva is frequently conceptualized as a guide on that journey through life, as a guide who takes humans on their journey through life from physical birth to physical death. So we see examples of conversations or memes like, "Be beside me, Lord Shiva, and guide me on my path. I am lost on the boulevards of life. Bring me back to the right path, O Lord." Or we see these beautiful pictures of a human walking down a road or a path with their hands clasped in Lord Shiva's hands. So what is very important to note is that for cognitive linguists, these expressions are not simply a way of speaking about a deity, but actually of understanding a deity, of It's a reflection of the underlying thoughts, ideas, and experiences that we have. And so when we look at the conceptual metaphor, what we can do is look at what that real life experience would be. And this helps us understand what those deeper feelings and thoughts are. So if we look at what a guide is in the everyday world, a real life guide, if I was on a hike and I had a guide on that journey, what would that guide be to me? My guide would be someone who has the responsibility, who has willingly taken on the responsibility of taking me along this journey to my destination, of making sure I get there safely, that I have the best possible and the most enjoyable journey along the way. My guide has intimate knowledge of the path ahead of me and of the dangers and the obstacles I will face, so my guide can prepare me. In a real life situation, I don't need to be prepared for everything I will encounter on my path, because my guide is prepared on my behalf. I can just relax and enjoy the journey, trusting that this person will get me there safely, and trusting that my guide has made a commitment to walk with me the entire way and will not leave me stranded along the way. So if we look at this and we think of Lord Shiva as a guide, what does this reflect about the underlying thoughts, about the conceptualization of Lord Shiva through our everyday language? Well, it reflects something so rich. It reflects a conceptualization of Lord Shiva as having a personal and caring relationship with each person. It reflects a willingness on the part of Lord Shiva to guide devotees on their journey through life. And that even when we don't know what's planned for us, even though we don't know what, that that Lord Shiva will be there, that he knows what's coming. When life is difficult, when people encounter impediments to their progress, when they fail in their endeavors, the knowledge that they are being led through life by a loving guide who is their companion offers hope. Life becomes less scary, the journey less lonely, with this belief that they're not alone on their journey, but undertaking this journey together with Mahadev, who is always at their side. So while I've briefly set correspondences that reflect the deeper meaning of this conceptualization of Lord Shiva as a guide, it should be noted that obviously metaphor is grounded in personal lived experience or knowledge of the world, and so the exact correspondence from person to person, but the defining conceptualization springs from a common experience and a common knowledge base, and so it's likely to be familiar to speakers who share a language and culture. So in this case, speakers of English often use this metaphor and will understand it. I would like to introduce, by way of closing, a personal anecdote that shows how naturally this conceptualization of Lord Shiva as a guide arises. So this is from a poem I wrote when I had only the merest trickle of knowledge of Sanatana Dharma and of Lord Shiva. So this is not coming from a book, just coming from a deep and personal place and arising naturally. And this is what a few years ago. I don't need a path when you're holding my hand. When I walk in your footsteps, I don't watch my feet. Every step is perfect in triumph and defeat. So we see in that a natural extension of my human experience, of my knowledge, into this divine encounter, and a combination of the life as a journey and Lord Shiva as a guide, conceptual metaphor. So as this example illustrates, the theory of conceptual metaphor offers an answer of how we as humans are able to express our thoughts and our experiences of the divine using every language and drawing on our real world experiences. It highlights the way in which the material world and the fullness of human experience provides a rich and raw matter that we use to shape through language into the expression of our relationship with the divine and of our relationship between humans and deities. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. Namaste, everybody.
Namaskar. My name is Purnima Nath. Thank you so much for inviting me to say a few words. We all know today, October 2nd, is Gandhi Jayanti. But did you know October 2nd is also birthday of freedom fighter and second Prime Minister of India, Lal Bahadur Shastri? We do not know our own history. We are not taught about our own heritage, what to say about the foreigners. For the West, Hindus are oppressive, Hindus are superstitious, Hindus are regressive, Hindus are uncivilized, Hindu Brahmins are supremacists and fascists. Hindus are essentially extremists. Kali, Sati, caste, curry, cow are some of the ways Hindus are shamed in the West. First, they came with the narrative Hindutva is dangerous for Hindus. And somehow they are the savior of the Hindus. Sadly, though, and perhaps intentionally, they were unable to keep their enthusiasm, and by the end of their conference, they succeeded declaring Hindutva is Hinduism. They targeted 1.25 billion Hindus of this world in one shot. Dismantling global Hindutva, supported and organized by the Ivy Leagues of America, was blessing in disguise for the Hindus. They brought us here to Hindutva for global good. I agree with them. Hindutva is Hinduism. Hinduism, that is Hinduness, that is Hindutva. One in English, one in Sanskrit. Tattva, a Sanskrit word, means principles, reality, truth, thatness. Tattva is inseparable part of Hinduism, that is Hindutva. 5 basic tattvas are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. In English, ism is used to describe a distinct practice, philosophy, ideology, and movement. For instance, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, communism, extremism, Islamism, Christianism, fundamentalism, and so on. Hinduphobia and atrocities against Hindus worldwide continue today subtly. But the attacker came in a different terminology this time, Hindutva. The term Hindutva is used to target and confuse people in a word war, to defame and shame Hindus, to eradicate Hinduism, and to finish the land of Hindus, that is Hindustan, once and for all. Remember the Aztecs or the ancient Greek religion? Do they exist anymore? How about the Persians? Why? Our ancestors were put through enormous terror, yet Hindutva survived, remarkably so. Hindutva is the only ancient religion that survived. Today, defending this religion and standing up against the constant insults and intimidations of Hindus and Hinduism has been labeled as extremism and political propaganda. Our ancestors died to save this sophisticated ancient system of spirituality, knowledge, principles, and wisdom through generations. But the West want to confuse the world with word entanglement and battles of terminology. They want us to reject our own heritage. When someone tries to confuse you with these two words, stand up and expose them. Land of the Hindus has been strategically broken into separate Islamic countries, and traces of Hindutva and Hindus are being wiped out systematically in front of our eyes for thousands of years. Do not be fooled by the labeling. Our philosophy was not based on killing people of other faiths, paths, or ideologies. Our philosophy was not based on forcing people to accept from one book blindly. Our philosophy was not based on vilifying other faiths either. Our philosophy was based on self-inquiry, questions, debates, discourses, and discoveries. Oldest sacred scripture of the world, Rig Veda, was composed in 1500 BCE in Sanskrit in ancient India, that is Hind. Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. Yoga, Ayurveda, chess, button, number 0, cataract surgery, plastic surgery, shampoo, algebra, trigonometry, calculus, to name a few, are major inventions and gifts of Hindu civilization to the world, with no patents and to no credits to Hindus and Hindutva. Hindu civilization, inventions, architectures, accomplishments are glorious and endless. Hence, Hindu heritage was buried. Hindu land was not only the largest democracy in the world today, but also the oldest democracy. Hindutva is inclusive of gazillions of faiths and all living beings, including two-legged or four-legged animals, insects, aquatics, reptiles, and so on. And Hindutva is environmental conscious and nature focused. We even call our rivers as mothers, earth as mother, sun as father, and moon as mother. We worship trees. We see God even in stone. Yes, Hindutva is the only path for human rights, women rights, animal rights, environmental rights, equality, responsibility, ethics, morale, and world peace. Leftist favorite topics of activism. They might as well embrace Hinduism. No, Hindus do not need to resort to terror to bring harmony and world peace. Non-violence, tolerance, acceptance, and respect, all are good, but Hindus must defend themselves. Hindutva is beyond one definition. Hindutva is combination of philosophy, religion, ideology, civilization, and spirituality. There is nothing like that survived in the world at this moment. Hindutva is the oldest living civilization of the world. Hence, do not allow the Abrahamics or the atheist to define what Hindutva is or who Hindus are. Significance of Hindutva in the new world order has become even more crucial. I'm sure you have followed the recent Quad development. Hence the nexus of Hindu haters united in fear to destroy Hindus and Hindutva once and for all. Now some questions for the viewers. Please name a country Hindus invaded. Please name a religion Hindus have annihilated. Please name a community Hindus have forcibly converted and erased. Now we can say all this for any other Abrahamic religion, can't we? Many debates about the definition of Hindus are being circulated, such as when the word Hindu came along. How does it matter? These are the major topics of interest of leftist, communist, expansionist, imperialists, and so-called historians and lovers of South Asian studies in the West. Land of the free, America and the West in general is being used as a major incubator for spreading Hindu hate and Hinduphobia. These deliberate attacks are not going to stop. In fact, these intensity of these attacks will only increase, sadly. In one hand, Hindus are going to be the targets of Christian faiths. See the recent example of Papua New Guinea, a Pacific nation near Australia, where Durga Puja was initially not permitted because idol worship does not align with Christian faith. Although Mr. David Manning apologized, but look at the incident. He is the one who signed the letter, but he blamed a department within for drafting the letter. Then why did he sign to begin with? We should not take these kinds of incidents lightly. I fear this is soon coming to America. On the other hand, Hindus are going to be targets of brainwashed woke culture of the West, communists and Islamists, such as left liberal Democrat Party in the United States have taken caste as a protected category. No, they are not interested or willing to listen to the truth of caste, how it was manufactured by the British. In paper, Hindus are 79% in India. That is 95% of the world population. But I doubt today there is even 60% Hindus remaining. Converting by the day into Abrahamic faiths. Nepal has 2% of global Hindu population. Therefore, only 3% of global Hindus are living outside India and Nepal. The last place on earth that can save and has claims of Hindus and Hindutva is Hind, that is India. As an Indian American and a Hindu, I'm appalled to witness what is happening in India. American liberal giant media, New York Times, can place an ad in India that is treasonous to the elected government of the largest democracy. Yes, India elected Prime Minister democratically. He was not selected. American liberal media, Washington Post, rolls the red carpet to the rabid Hindu haters to spew venom against Hindus in India in the name of freedom of speech. American woke liberal Ivy Leagues is supporting and sponsoring, targeting entire civilization and religious group and democratically elected government. American social media, liberal left companies bans Indian nationalists and flags them as extremists. American social media, liberal left companies plays with vice president and home minister of a democratic country. Are these coincidences? Nah, I do not believe in coincidence. Time has come to tear the veil of illusion created by the foreign supremacists and radical ideologies. Time has come to expose the truth. Time has come to be Hindutva, land of the Hindus, that is the Hind, that is Hindustan, that is India, that is Bharat, the oldest and largest democracy of the world, must be declared as a Hindu Rashtra in order to save the Hindus and global Hindutva and the world. Declare India as Hindu Rashtra, reclaim Hind, reform India's constitution, fix historical blunders, free Hindus from the clutches of neo-colonialists. 1947 was a transfer of power from the foreigners to the socialists, communist, Islamist, and Christian missionaries. India has been systematically divided, and the policies that were implemented are anti-Hindu. Chanakya said a dry tree is responsible for burning the whole forest. I say, likewise, one bad leader can destroy the entire nation and the country. So save Hindus, save Hindutva, save Hindustan, save Hinduism, and save Hind. With that, I conclude my speech. Thank you.